Super Tuesday Trump and Biden rematch looms as both win. Big Donald Trump vowed to cheering supporters that he would take back our country after dominating the Super Tuesday primary contests. Hours later he became the lone Republican White House contender after rival Nikki Haley dropped out. President Joe Biden, who largely sailed through the Democratic nominating contests, said Mr. Trump was driven by grievance and grift. The results make a repeat of the 2020 US election all but certain. Both men appear poised to frame the election as an existential test for the future of the country as they head towards a rematch in November. On Wednesday, Mr. Trump made it clear on social media that he had now set his sights on that rematch, challenging Mr. Biden to debates, anytime, anywhere, anyplace, on issues that are so vital to America. Polling indicates that many Americans do not want the same choice they had 4 years ago, but the Super Tuesday results make a repeat of 2020 seemingly determined. Despite the lack of enthusiasm, both men swept nearly all of the contests as voters in 15 states and 1 territory cast their ballots on the biggest night in the primary calendar. Mr. Trump won in Alabama, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, and Virginia. He lost in Vermont to former UN Ambassador Ms. Haley, who announced on Wednesday she is quitting the race without endorsing her rival. Mr. Biden swept the same states plus Utah and Vermont, but lost to a Baltimore businessman in the U.S. territory of American Samoa. He also won the Iowa caucus, which announced its results on Tuesday. His only challenger in the primaries, Dean Phillips, dropped out of the race on Wednesday and endorsed him. As the two candidates racked up their wins on Super Tuesday, they characterized each other as threats to the U.S. Mr. Trump warned his supporters at Mar-a-Lago that if we lose the election, we're not going to have a country left. He invoked one of his key issues, immigration, and the numbers crossing the southern border. He also pledged that the world would see fewer wars if he were president. Just before Mr. Trump spoke, Mr. Biden released a statement attacking his opponent. Tonight's results leave the American people with a clear choice, he said. Are we going to keep moving forward, or will we allow Donald Trump to drag us backwards into the chaos, division, and darkness that defined his term in office? Analysts are viewing the Super Tuesday primaries as a test of Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump's support in different states and among different groups. It is also a test for the parties and their voters' enthusiasm. There were several other important takeaways on Tuesday night. In Minnesota, about 20% of Democratic voters cast their ballots, the uncommitted, as a protest over Mr. Biden's Gaza policy. North Carolina's closely watched gubernatorial race will be between Republican Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson and Josh Stein, the Democratic Attorney General. In California's U.S. Senate race, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff and Republican Steve Garvey, a former baseball player, will advance to the general election. Meanwhile, in Texas, Congressman Colin Orred, a former NFL football player, will take on Republican Ted Cruz in the Senate race. By the end of Super Tuesday, Democrats and Republicans will have awarded about a third of the total delegate count available through the entire primary contest. The Trump campaign is confident the former president will hit the delegate threshold later this month. Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump have all but locked up their party's nominations, but there were warning signs for both. The president has seen some Democratic voters back uncommitted on ballots, and while it is unclear how that may translate in November, could chip away at his support in key states. On the Republican side, many anti-Trump voters had given their backing to Ms. Haley. She did not hold a campaign event after failing to gain huge traction on Tuesday night, but her campaign emphasized that her Republican supporters who could prove key in a general election continued to seek an alternative to Mr. Trump.